Hey, the province is investigating claims fish processing plants are releasing contaminated effluent into the ocean. Now, the claims come from a BC photographer who visited the sites of two plants, one in the Campbell River area and the other near Tofino. Tavish Campbell says he dove deep into the water and found what he called blood water.
It is very deep and it's very dark down there, so I have two huge underwater lights that I have attached to the camera, and as I swam down towards the pipe, these lights illuminated the billowing red effluent pouring out of the pipe, and within that red effluent is tons and tons of scales, so it's all kind of shimmering in the light. It's really, really eerie and pretty disgusting at the same time.
Well, the Federal Fisheries Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, says he is watching developments.
I wrote to the British Columbia Minister of the Environment to share our concern when we saw this video. I understand the BC government is conducting an investigation or an audit of the particular processing facility. Obviously, Environment Canada, which has responsibility to enforce the provisions of the Fisheries Act, which prevent deleterious substances from being put into the water, which could harm fish habitat. We're taking note of all this. We're looking into this. And obviously, if there's an appropriate enforcement action that will take place, it will take place.
So is there action that needs to take place now? Well, for more on that, on the line is Finn Donnelly, the MP for Port Moody Coquitlam, and he's a federal NDP critic for fisheries and oceans. Good morning.
Good morning, Rick.
What's your reaction to these claims about this contaminated effluent? Have you seen the video?
I have seen the video.
And what do you think?
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting to see that pouring out into the ocean, to see salmon swimming through that, and others, marine life having to put up with that is, it's absolutely alarming.
How do we monitor plants like this currently?
Well, I think that's a provincial jurisdiction, as the minister has pointed out, and it's up to the province to ensure that's happening. But certainly there's a role for, as the minister also pointed out, federal agencies like Environment Canada and DFO. And I will remind this is just end of pipe that the minister, I think, is referring to, what comes out that pipe, but it's also what goes in. So in terms of eggs that come from other countries, we have to monitor for any disease that could be in those eggs that are being used to raise farm salmon that end up being processed. So that's a concern as well. So Fisheries and Oceans also has a role here.
Well, the DFO says in a statement that it will continue to work with all agencies involved in the regulation of fish processing facilities, but do you think the department needs to take more of a lead here? And if so, what would you like to see them do further?
No, I absolutely do. I've been calling, along with many others who've been warning the government about parasites, viruses, diseases coming from salmon farms for a long time. And I certainly welcome the investigation. I think that needs to be done. And if tests show that there is PRV or any other concerns in that bloody discharge.
PRV is?
Pyrene reovirus. And this gets really technical, Rick, with I can barely keep up. I'm not a biologist in any way or a pathologist, but certainly I've been familiar with some of the diseases and viruses and parasites that have been associated with farms. And this isn't uncommon to farms. They have to deal with disease management. That's very, very common. But what is uncommon is those farms are not in oceans by wild salmon. So that's a huge concern. And I'd like to see, in terms of, you asked for what kind of action, I've been calling, and many others have been saying, we need to transition this industry to a different technology that prevents these parasites, viruses, and diseases from transferring into the ocean. So it's past time, I think, that industry transfers to land-based closed containment technology.
Very briefly, Finn, what's at stake if we don't have more oversight?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see, as Justice Cohen warned, we're going to see more impacts on wild salmon. We could see the long-term demise of wild salmon, and some are estimating that could actually be shorter, in the near future than the longer term. So this is certainly why since I've been the Fisheries and Oceans critic for 8 years, have been calling for action on this file and focused on salmon farms, especially those right near or on wild salmon migration routes. So we need action now. We need, I think, the the way forward is to move to land-based, closed containment, become world leaders, separate the two. This would be a great thing for the Pacific, the West Coast, and for Canada to promote. Separate the two, so you have the wild salmon fishery continue and thrive, and let the salmon farming industry thrive on land.
Finn Donnelly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rick.
Finn Donnelly, MP for Port Moody Coquitlam, federal NDP critic for Fisheries and Oceans.